covering and supporting Penn State football. First of all, you got to give Ohio State credit. Really talented team. I thought we played our tail off. Obviously, first half, we were able to overcome the turnovers and stay in the game and battle, but you can't turn the ball over that many times against that type of opponent and think you're going to be successful. Something we, for the most part, we have done a good job of this year, but we did not today. Thought we played hard. Did some really, really good things. There's a ton of stuff to be proud of, but there's just as much stuff that we got to correct. Tomorrow. There's a lot of corrections, obviously, that we have to make. But to me, the game starts and ends with the turnovers. You can't give that type of team a short field that many times and be successful. It's going to make it really challenging. So open up the questions.
Raise your hand, look at the mic to you. Right here.
James, how would you assess Sean's performance, and do you expect more from him than to turn it over 4 times?
Yeah, I thought he played gutsy and made some big-time plays, but obviously you can't have the turnovers. The one, I don't know if it's necessarily his fault. It was a pressure and a strip sack. But the other ones, whether it left the ball inside or whether got to find a throwing lane around, really athletic, long defensive ends, you got to find a throwing lane. So I thought he played gutsy and he did some really good things, but obviously there's some things that we got to get cleaned up too.
James, as a coach, how do you reconcile being up in the fourth quarter on the number 2 team in the country, and then literally 7-8 minutes later you're down 20? How do you evaluate your team when something like that happens so quickly?
Yeah. Again, the game starts and ends, with the turnovers. We knew this type of opponent we were going to have to be able to score points on. They're explosive on the offensive side of the ball. They're explosive on the defensive side of the ball. Played our tail off, but made too many critical mistakes.
James, how do you assess the play of your defense? You held them to 16 points, forced a bunch of field goals, but then inevitably they exploded for some points in spite of the turnovers. Can you talk about how your defense played overall? How do you assess that afterward?
Yeah, I thought we played our tails off, especially a bunch of short fields. I think they had the one drive, right after we went down and got the lead again. They had the one long drive that they put together. We went tempo a couple times, but for as many short fields as they had tonight, they played really well. Obviously, the one guy we struggled with is Marvin Harrison. He's obviously a really good player, and they went to him time and time again. But overall, we played really well.
James, what do you say to your sideline after those turnovers, or do you leave it up to your position coaches to talk to your players?
Yeah, it's impossible to talk to your sideline.
Talk to, like, Sean or somebody like that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, that's not the time right there to critique. They're feeling bad enough at the moment, so you try to support them and move on to the next play. We'll make those corrections on Sunday.
James over here. How would you describe the gap between Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State?
They got good football teams, and we played really well against Ohio State today. Had a chance to win the game, made too many mistakes in critical moments, which you can't do against a top-ranked opponent like that.
You guys converted 3 fourth downs, so what did that do just to energize your team and keep you guys in it? Obviously, you didn't have the result you wanted, but what did converting those 4th downs really do for your team? Yeah,
coming into this season, we wanted to be aggressive on 4th down. Coming into this game, you look at their game last week. We knew we were going to have to be able to score some points against these guys and take some risks and take some chances. Obviously, the 3 that we converted were big and allowed us to score points and allow us to score touchdowns. We're going to have to take on some of those risks. But again, the margin of error against these type of opponents is very small.
James, it seemed like you guys were a completely different offense in the first half, even schematically than you had been a lot earlier this year. How much were you guys saving for this game, and how would you evaluate that first half offensive performance and sort of doing those new things?
Yeah, I thought some of the things that we did from a change-up perspective in terms of formations and personnel groups, I think helped us. Gave them some kind of things to think about. They weren't as confident with our formations, what we were going to run out of our formations. So I think it was a nice change up, and I think it allowed us to move the ball. We moved the ball pretty effectively against that team. So I thought we did some nice things. Again, I don't mean to keep saying the same thing over and over again, but besides the turnovers, I thought we did some pretty good things on both sides of the ball.
James, Parker Washington put together the most productive performance of his career to this point. Through the first 7 games, we didn't see all that kind of a production from him. Is this more indicative of who he is as a playmaker at this level of the Big Ten than perhaps what the stat sheet reflected from the first half of the season?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's made plays really his entire career here. He's a contested catch guy. He's got the ability to make you miss. He's a really good route runner and has been productive. So he had some opportunities tonight to make some plays. He made those plays. Obviously, I got a ton of respect for Parker and the type of player he is.
Coach, back here, what is it about the screen game that you've liked so much over the last 2 weeks?
I'm sorry?
What is it about the screen game that you've liked so much over the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, when you're playing that type of defense with that type of pass rush, you got to do some things to help your offensive line out, to help your quarterback up, change your pace things. That's going to be something that we're going to have to continue to do all year long. But that was the reason for it. Obviously, with that type of pass rush, you got to keep them with different looks, with different schemes, keep them kind of on their toes and on their heels with those things to be concerned about as well.
James, going back to the 4th downs, the one that wasn't converted, what went into that decision to go for it instead of taking I think it would have been around a 35-yard field goal there?
Yeah, I think kind of already covered that. Coming into this game, felt like we were going to have to score touchdowns to win the game. And, I know obviously the focus is on the one we missed, but I think people liked the 3 that we made.
James, regrouping emotionally after you were right there, with 6 or 7 minutes to go, how much of a challenge do you expect this week now?
Our leadership's been great. PJ was great in the locker room right then. Losses are hard. They're hard around here at a place like Penn State where we have really high expectations and standards. But that's our job as coaches, and that's their job as players. To rebound as quickly as we possibly can, get the corrections made, and move on to our next opponent so we give ourselves the best chance to be 1-0 next week.
Thank you, Coach.